I never thought my dad would humiliate me in front of the entire family with one text message, but that's exactly how it started. On the family group chat, the phone buzzed, and there it was. Everyone's invited to Thanksgiving except the family embarrassment. Then 20 laughing emojis. It didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a punch, straight to the chest. For a second, I just stared at the screen. I could see each family member's little reaction pop up one by one, a few of them pressing the ha-ha like it was the funniest thing they'd ever read. My father, Franklin, always loved being the one who set the tone. He was loud, sarcastic, and the kind of man who thought cruelty counted as comedy. My mom, Carolyn, was in the chat too, but she stayed silent as usual. Silence from her wasn't surprising. She rarely stood up to him. My older brother Derek replied almost instantly with classic and another row of laughing emojis. That was Derek. He lived to impress Dad and make me feel small. My younger sister Jenna, though, didn't respond right away. She never joined in on the jokes at my expense, but she didn't defend me either. I could almost feel her torn expression through the phone, caught between me and the rest of them. My Uncle Robert sent a thumbs up because of course he did. He was Dad's brother, his shadow in every cruel joke. Grandpa Walter stayed quiet, but I knew his silence meant approval. He believed Franklin's word was law, and if I was being called the embarrassment, then I must have deserved it. I could feel my face getting hot. That phrase, family embarrassment, wasn't just something he made up in the moment. It was the nickname they'd been handing me for years. Every mistake I ever made, every wrong turn in my life, was kept alive in this family like it was part of my identity. Now it was stamped into a group chat carved into digital stone for everyone to laugh at. I typed back only 2 words: have fun. Then I turned off my phone. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, but from a kind of sharp clarity I hadn't felt before. They thought they could laugh at me, erase me from the family table, and carry on like it was nothing. They had no idea how wrong they were, because when they showed up at the restaurant that night thinking they were going to have the perfect Thanksgiving dinner without me, they learned the hard way who really had the power. My name is Naomi, and in my family, I've always been the one they point to when they need a laugh at someone else's expense. I didn't wake up one day and suddenly become the family embarrassment. It built over years, layered by little jabs at my life. If I got a bad grade in high school, Dad turned it into a running gag. When my first relationship ended, Derek joked at every family dinner that at least my boyfriend had escaped in time. Even when I struggled to find steady work after college, Uncle Robert called me our little professional disappointment, like it was some kind of affectionate nickname. For a long time, I swallowed it. I told myself it was normal, that families teased each other, that maybe if I worked harder, achieved more, or kept quiet, they'd stop. But they didn't. Each Thanksgiving, each Christmas, each birthday dinner, I walked into a room where my mistakes were the main course, and my mom, Carolyn, just watched. She would sometimes give me a small, guilty smile across the table, but she never stepped in. This year was supposed to be different. Franklin, my dad, decided that Thanksgiving wouldn't be at our house for the first time. He booked a fancy restaurant across town. He bragged in the group chat about how it would be the classiest Thanksgiving we've ever had. He wanted everyone to dress up, to make it special. For him, it wasn't really about family. It was about showing off. He loved attention, and the restaurant setting was perfect for that. I wasn't excited, but I planned to go. Even though I dreaded the jokes, I still held on to the hope that maybe this year would be kinder, that maybe Franklin would leave me alone in front of a crowd of strangers. Jenna had been texting me about outfits, trying to make it fun, and I was ready to push through for her sake. Then came the text, the one where my dad labeled me the family embarrassment for everyone to see, laughing emojis piling on until it was clear what role I was expected to play. The outcast, the punchline, the one left behind. I sat in my small apartment staring at the screen, the weight of years pressing down on me. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even shocked. I was just done. Done waiting for a family that would never treat me like I mattered. Done pretending the tradition meant more than my own peace. Thanksgiving, in our family, was supposed to be about gathering together, but for me, it had always been about survival, about enduring one more night of being the joke. This time, when they decided I wasn't welcome, I realized something important. I didn't need their table. And if they thought they could laugh at me while enjoying their perfect dinner, they were about to learn how wrong they were. The text hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I knew Franklin liked to make jokes at my expense, but this wasn't a slip of the tongue at the dinner table or a sarcastic comment I could brush off. This was deliberate. He typed it out, hit send, and then added 20 laughing emojis to make sure everyone knew just how hilarious he thought it was to exclude his own daughter from Thanksgiving. My phone buzzed nonstop for the next few minutes. Derek responded first, writing "Classic Dad" with a string of clapping hands. Uncle Robert sent "Family Tradition" with a thumbs up. Even my grandpa, who rarely texted at all, managed to reply with a grinning face. I watched their reactions stack up on the screen and felt the familiar sting of humiliation. To them, this wasn't cruel. It was entertainment. Jenna didn't respond right away. That was typical of her. She always sat on the edge of these family battles, never joining in but never speaking up either. A few minutes later, she sent me a private message. "Naomi, I didn't know he'd do that. I'm so sorry." I stared at her text for a long time. I knew she meant it, but it didn't erase the fact that she'd still be at the table with them while I was left out. As I sat there, I thought about every Thanksgiving before this one. I remembered Franklin raising his glass one year and saying, "Here's to Naomi finally paying rent on time," as if the entire meal was a comedy roast. I remembered Derek leaning across the table, smirking as he asked if I had another dead-end job lined up. I remembered Uncle Robert patting my shoulder and telling me I'd find my way someday, like I was still a lost child. They laughed, and I smiled tightly, but inside I shrank a little smaller every time. That group chat message wasn't just a joke. It was the confirmation of everything they had been telling me for years, that I was nothing more than their entertainment, a reminder of what not to be. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to cry or argue or beg for their approval. I felt a different kind of energy building in me. Franklin thought he had the upper hand. By excluding me, he believed he controlled the story. But what he didn't realize was that I had something he didn't: connections. I worked part-time at the very restaurant where he had booked Thanksgiving dinner. I wasn't just some name on the reservation list. I knew the owner personally. As that thought settled in, my humiliation started to shift into something sharper. They wanted to laugh at me, but they had no idea what was coming. When I turned off my phone, the apartment felt unnaturally quiet. For years, I had drowned out my pain with noise. Music, TV, even the hum of the dishwasher. Anything to avoid being alone with the echo of my family's words. But this silence felt different. It wasn't heavy or suffocating. It was sharp and clear, like the quiet before a storm. I sat at my small kitchen table and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The years of humiliation, the public jokes, the way Franklin used me as his personal punchline while the others laughed to stay on his good side. I could hear his voice in my head, booming and confident, always certain that his words carried weight. For the first time, I questioned whether they really did. That text wasn't just about excluding me from a meal, it was about control. Franklin loved being the center of every gathering, dictating who belonged and who didn't, setting the tone and daring anyone to challenge him. By sending that message, he was making sure everyone knew I was powerless. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't. Because Franklin might have booked the reservation, but I knew the man who actually owned the restaurant. Mr. Harlan had hired me for part-time work the year before, when I was struggling to pay rent. He was older, kind, but strict, and he respected people who worked hard. He treated me like a person, not a mistake. He gave me extra hours when I needed them, slipped me free meals on long shifts, and told me more than once that I was smarter than I gave myself credit for. He had become something my father never was, a quiet supporter, someone who believed I had value. I pulled out my phone again, but this time I didn't open the family chat. I scrolled through my contacts until I found his number. My thumb hovered for a second as doubt crept in. Was I really about to do this? Cancel Thanksgiving for my entire family? A part of me worried it was petty, that maybe I should just let them go and prove they didn't matter to me anymore. But another part of me, a stronger part, whispered that this wasn't about revenge. It was about balance. They wanted me erased from the table, but they didn't deserve the luxury of celebrating without consequence. I pressed call. After 2 rings, Mr. Harlan's familiar voice answered, "Naomi, good to hear from you. Everything all right?" Hearing the warmth in his tone nearly broke me, but I steadied my voice. "I need to ask you for a favor. It's about the Bell family reservation for Thanksgiving." There was a pause. He knew my last name. He knew enough about my situation to put the pieces together. "Go on," he said gently. I explained everything. The group chat, the text, the way my father had humiliated me. I tried to keep my voice level, but I could feel the emotion rising, years of frustration pushing to the surface. "I know it's a lot to ask, but would you cancel it? Just cancel it completely. Don't give them another table. Don't let them book again." Another silence. But this one wasn't heavy. It was thoughtful. Then he said, "Naomi, you've worked hard here. You've shown up, even on the tough days. If your family thinks they can treat you like that and still expect me to serve them a holiday meal, they're wrong. I'll cancel it myself." Relief washed over me. "Thank you," I whispered. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "You deserve better than what they give you. Let them learn the hard way." When I hung up, my hands were still shaking, but not from fear. For once it was from adrenaline, from the rush of finally doing something that shifted the power. I imagined Franklin strutting into that restaurant, expecting the red carpet treatment, only to be told his table didn't exist anymore. I could almost see his face, the way his confidence would falter. But this wasn't just about picturing his humiliation. It was about reclaiming something inside myself. For too long, I had been told that I was weak, the embarrassment, the one who couldn't get it together. But in that moment, I wasn't weak. I was making a choice that showed I mattered, that I could take action instead of silently absorbing their cruelty. The rest of the night, I stayed in that silence, letting it grow around me like armor. I cooked a small meal for myself, something simple but comforting. And for the first time on Thanksgiving week, I didn't feel dread. I felt steady. I knew Franklin would rage when he found out. Derek would try to laugh it off, and Robert would probably twist it into another joke. Carolyn would wring her hands and say nothing, and Jenna would send me a private apology again. But none of that mattered anymore. They had drawn the line when they excluded me, and I had responded by reminding them that I wasn't powerless. Thanksgiving Day arrived with a gray November sky and a chill in the air. My neighborhood was quiet except for the occasional car on its way to a family gathering. I woke up later than usual, wrapped in a blanket, and made myself coffee. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing myself for what I would have to endure at Thanksgiving dinner. There would be no nervous car ride to the restaurant, no rehearsed answers to Derek's mocking questions, no fake smiles across the table while Franklin's voice dominated the room. I felt strangely light. Across town, my family was getting dressed in their best clothes, ready for the big dinner Franklin had been bragging about for weeks. I could picture him tightening his tie in the mirror, practicing the jokes he would tell the waiter, preparing to play the role of the charming host. Derek would be smug as always, probably reminding Jenna to stop fidgeting with her dress, while Carolyn made sure Grandpa Walter's coat was buttoned. They had no idea what was waiting for them. By 6 o'clock, I imagined them walking through the polished glass doors of the restaurant. The warm light would spill out onto the sidewalk, the hum of conversation and clinking glasses filling the air. Franklin would step forward first, chest puffed out, announcing the name Bell, like it carried authority. He loved moments like that, being the man in charge, the one whose name opened doors. The host, a young woman with a calm smile, would check the reservation list. I could see her scanning the paper, her expression shifting slightly as her eyes moved down the page. Franklin would grow impatient almost immediately. He was never good at waiting. "Reservation for Bell. 8 people. 6 o'clock, he would repeat, louder this time, as if raising his voice would make the table appear. "I'm sorry, sir," the host would say politely. "There's no reservation under that name." Confusion would ripple through the group. Carolyn would step forward, trying to smooth things over with her gentle tone. "It should be there. My husband booked it weeks ago." The host would check again, then look up firmly. "The reservation was canceled by the owner. I'm afraid we don't have any tables available tonight." Silence. For the first time in a long time, Franklin's confidence would falter. Derek might laugh nervously, thinking it was a mistake. "Dad, just tell them to double-check. It's probably under a different name." But when the host repeated herself, calm and unwavering, the truth would settle in. Franklin would turn red, his jaw tightening. "What do you mean canceled by the owner? I'm a paying customer. This is my family's Thanksgiving." The host would hold her ground. "I understand, sir, but the reservation is no longer valid. I'm sorry." All around them, other diners would glance over. Strangers with half-finished glasses of wine and steaming plates of food would pause to watch the scene unfold. Franklin loved an audience when he was in control, but now the attention burned. He wasn't the commanding voice of the evening anymore. He was just another man denied a table. Carolyn would look down, embarrassed, tugging at the strap of her purse. Grandpa Walter would mutter something about unprofessional business, his pride bruised. Robert would whisper that maybe they should try another restaurant, though deep down he would be enjoying watching his brother squirm. But it would be Jenna who felt the weight of it the most. I imagined her shifting uncomfortably, her eyes darting to the other diners, her cheeks flushed. She would know immediately. She would know this wasn't some clerical error. She would know I had been the one to make this happen. And Franklin, he would explode. "Do you know who I am? I demand to speak to the owner." His voice would thunder across the room, but instead of respect, it would draw more stares. The host, still calm, would say, "The owner is unavailable tonight. I'm afraid there's nothing else we can do." That line would sting more than anything else. For once, his demands didn't matter. His name didn't open doors. His power didn't mean anything. Back in my apartment, I set my small table for one. I had cooked myself roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. Nothing fancy, nothing extravagant. But as I sat down and took my first bite, I felt something I had never felt on Thanksgiving before. Peace. I wasn't bracing for ridicule, waiting for my name to be the punchline of a joke. I wasn't forcing myself to swallow hurt alongside turkey and cranberry sauce. Instead, I imagined Franklin standing outside the restaurant, fuming with his family trailing behind him, their perfect holiday ruined. For once, I wasn't the one being laughed at. For once, I wasn't the embarrassment. The power dynamic had shifted, and it wasn't because I yelled or begged or fought back with the same cruelty they used on me. It was because I made a quiet choice that spoke louder than any of Franklin's jokes. That night, as the city quieted down and the streets emptied, I realized this was more than just a canceled reservation. It was the first time I had refused to play the role they assigned me. They could laugh in their group chat, call me the embarrassment, and pretend they held all the cards. But when it came time to sit at their perfect Thanksgiving table, they were the ones left standing in the cold. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was flooded with messages. Missed calls from Jenna, 2 voicemails from Carolyn, and a string of texts from Franklin, so long I had to scroll for a full minute to reach the top. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the screen, torn between opening them all and deleting them without a glance. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself to read. Franklin's first few messages were pure rage. "How dare you! You ruined Thanksgiving. Ungrateful brat." The words were sharp and meant to cut, the same tone he had used my whole life when he wanted me to shrink. But beneath the fury, I noticed something different. He wasn't laughing anymore. He wasn't making a joke at my expense. He was begging for control he no longer had. Carolyn's voicemails were quieter, apologetic but empty. She said she wished things hadn't gone the way they did, that she just wanted the family to come together, that she hated to see the fighting. But she didn't apologize for standing by while Franklin humiliated me. She never did, and maybe she never would. Jenna's texts were the only ones I answered. She had written, "I can't believe what happened last night. Everyone was furious, but I know it was you. I don't blame you. I just wish it hadn't come to this." Her honesty stung, but it also carried something no one else had given me: acknowledgement. She saw me, even if she didn't fully understand. I typed back, "I had to do it, Jenna. I couldn't keep being their target. Maybe one day you'll see why." For the rest of the day, I stayed off my phone. I went for a walk through the park, watching families gather for leftovers picnics, kids chasing each other while parents laughed and shared slices of pie. For a moment, I felt a pang of envy, wishing I had that kind of warmth. But then I reminded myself that sometimes family doesn't come from blood. Sometimes family is the people who see you, respect you, and don't make you smaller to make themselves bigger. Mr. Harlan texted me later that evening, asking if I was all right. He said he had heard Franklin stormed out of the restaurant cursing, his voice carrying all the way down the block. He told me not to worry, that the staff had handled it, and that none of them thought less of me. "You don't owe them your peace," he wrote. Those words stuck with me. For years, I had convinced myself that enduring my family's cruelty was a kind of strength, that sitting through the jokes without breaking down meant I was tough. But I realized that wasn't strength. It was survival. Real strength came from finally drawing a line, from saying enough, from refusing to keep giving them the power to define me. The days after Thanksgiving were quieter. Franklin sent fewer texts, though every so often I'd get a new one demanding that I apologize for what I did. Derek wrote once, mocking me for being pathetic enough to cancel dinner, but I ignored him. Uncle Robert didn't bother reaching out at all. Carolyn sent a few more messages, vague attempts at peacemaking, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. The truth was, I didn't miss them. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for stepping away. I felt relieved. Jenna called me 3 days later. Her voice cracked as soon as I answered. "It was awful, Naomi. After they told us the reservation was canceled, Dad lost it. He yelled at the staff and Mom cried. Derek kept saying it was your fault, and Grandpa told everyone you should be cut off for good. I just sat there wishing you were with me instead of them." Hearing her say that almost broke me. I wanted to tell her I wished the same, that I wanted her by my side too. But I also knew she wasn't ready to step away from them. Not yet. She was still caught in their web, still trying to hold the family together even as it tore her apart. "One day, Jenna," I said softly, "one day you'll see it isn't worth it." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment and thought about what Thanksgiving had always meant to me. For years, it was a reminder of everything I lacked: acceptance, love, belonging. But now, it was something different. It was the day I stopped letting myself be their scapegoat, the day I stopped handing them the power to make me feel small. I learned something important that week. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the bravest thing you can do. My family believed they could erase me from their table, but the truth was, I had already erased the hold they had over me. Their laughter, their insults, their cruel nicknames, they didn't define me anymore. As the weekend ended, I set new intentions for myself. I would build traditions of my own, even if they were small at first. A quiet meal, a walk in the park, a gathering of friends who saw me for who I was. Thanksgiving would no longer be about surviving my family's cruelty. It would be about claiming my own peace. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Franklin will never change. Maybe Carolyn will keep her silence. Derek will keep mocking. Robert will keep stirring the pot, and Grandpa will keep nodding in approval. But none of that matters the way it once did, because I know now that I don't need their approval to matter. I don't need their table to have a place in the world. The most powerful thing I did wasn't canceling the reservation. It was realizing I had the right to walk away and never look back. And that's how I turned one Thanksgiving from the worst night of my life into the first time I truly felt free. My family thought they had all the power, but they learned that sometimes the person you laugh at has more strength than you'll ever understand. If this story connected with you, if you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family or had to fight to take your peace back, I want you to know you're not alone. You deserve better than being someone's punchline. Thank you for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and leave a comment below. I'd love to know what you would have done in my place. And if you want more powerful stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you never miss the next one. Your support means everything, and it's what allows me to keep telling stories that matter. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. And I, for the first time, was free. The reservation was gone, and so was their control.